The Silence, a Netflix original movie that's basically a combination of Pitch Black and A Quiet Place. For those of you who've not watched this movie, there are going to be spoilers here. Not going to be recapping this, just going to be telling you what I thought about the movie. Was it a good movie? Yes. The concept was interesting. Of course, it's something we've seen before with Bird Box and A Quiet Place. There seems to be this trope going around with what The Quiet Place has done. Good job, John Krasinski. You started a revolution. So the movie is about these creatures called vesps that were unearthed by these miners, and they apparently had been stuck under that pocket of the earth forever how long, just like Pitch Black, and they evolved into whatever it is they are now from being stuck there. So God knows what they were before. It's possible they could have been bats or some kind of prehistoric creature. As I'm watching it, I can't help but wonder whether or not these creatures are based on the Quiet Place universe, or maybe where the Quiet Place things came from, it's where these things came from, and they end up getting stuck under the earth, or it's just some other creatures that resemble them. I like that in this one, there are actually monsters that we can see. Honestly, when I saw the trailer, I'm like, it's a nice concept, but this looks like a sci-fi movie, and as my colleague said, this is kind of what sci-fi used to do with popular movies. They would bootleg a version off of it and make their own version that was a crappier version, but honestly, I have to say, even though I thought this was going to be a knockoff of Quiet Place, it did manage to do things that Quiet Place didn't. Quiet Place was a great movie, but it didn't make me cry. It made me keep questioning why people were so stupid. I mean, of course, in every horror movie or thriller, you have that, and there were those moments in this movie as well. But I did like what they did with this movie in certain scenes. They also provided examples that were not shown in The Quiet Place, and I think The Quiet Place movie did open up a lot of possibilities for other movies like this so that we can explore different circumstances with the same concept that were not previously explored in the original movie. An example of this is Glenn. I love this character. He's not a great actor. I haven't seen him in anything else, but here it seems like he wasn't really fully in his role. However, you can see that he's a nice guy. His character was very lovable, and I'm so sorry what happened to him. I'm like, this guy is so nice. He's like the perfect best friend, and the guy's kids call him Uncle. He's like Shane from The Walking Dead, a very nice version. He's the guy that everyone looks up to, and he's basically devoted his life to protecting others, and then he went out like that, the way that Eddie did in Jurassic Park Lost World. Oh my god, I felt so bad that he sacrificed himself a second time. I'm just like, dude, why? I just knew it. The moment I saw this guy and I fell in love with his character, I'm like, he's gonna die. He's gonna die trying to save everybody else. And of course, a cliche, he did. They also explored the baby scene, because thank goodness no one was pregnant in this movie, but they did show a scene in the train where these people realize that if they make noise, these things come running or flying or whatever. And this woman is sitting here with her baby, and the baby starts making noise. It's not the poor baby's fault. It's not the poor mother's fault. But then here's this ethical, philosophical, moral dilemma. The baby's crying, and there are hundreds of people on this train. So do you sacrifice the hundreds of people for this one baby and its mother? Or do you just keep it there and smother it? Like, what do you do? So the guy, he was smart. He's like, this sucks, and I'm so sorry, but he didn't even take the mother and throw her out with the baby. He just took the baby. He's like, listen, I gotta make the decision that nobody else wants to make. It's either the baby or all of us. Because when it really boils down to it, and it sucks saying this, the baby's a baby. Like, when I was a baby, I did remember some things, but I'm not going to remember, a lot of things. I mean, seriously, if there was a case like this, and I think about this stuff, and people will call people evil for having an answer, but you have to be logical as well. Feelings don't come into play with survival sometimes, and if you're talking about other people, like, let's just say I can see maybe 3 fertile women on this train, including the one behind the mother. They can have lots of babies. So if this isn't a pandemic where these things are attacking everything in sight that makes noise, and you have 3 fertile women that can have babies rather than this one baby, you're going to choose the woman that can have babies. And it's why doctors also opt to save the mother's life rather than the baby's life. Because when you think about it, the mother can have a lot more babies and produce a lot more offspring. If you think about it against saving the child, it would make more sense because there's no telling whether or not that child is even going to survive to an age where it can produce more babies itself. So it makes more sense to sacrifice the baby. It sounds horrible. Nobody likes saying it, and people who do say it are crucified for saying it, but it's the truth. In that situation, what would you want? Also consider that there are probably other kids on this train as well that are of the age where they can't can survive. You don't know whether or not they don't need anyone to help them. They can survive, but you want them to grow up as well and also produce humans. The main thing right now, the main purpose of everyone surviving is so they can carry on the human race. So it doesn't make sense to sacrifice hundreds of people on this train, especially fertile people, for one baby that's crying and doesn't know how to shut up. It's not the baby's fault, but it's just what it is. And I like that they tackle this in this movie, and I also like that the mother didn't treat everybody else like evil people. She understood what it was. She's like, okay, you're right. It's my baby. I'm going to go with the baby. I'm not going to let my baby go out there by itself. And honestly, if I was a mother, then I probably feel the same way. I wouldn't want my baby, but to save the baby's life, would I like smother it to have it pass out? Because if it cries, I'm going to die and so is my baby. So like it's all those hard questions that they pose in this movie that people ask, but they don't like to answer. And unfortunately, the baby was crying, so the mother and the baby did die. They didn't show it. People, of course, are scared for themselves. You could tell this is something that they did not want to do. They don't want it, but you darn well know if you were on that train too, you'd be like, shut that baby up. Because you want to live. You want to go see your family so you can protect them too. One thing I thought was pretty stupid, you know how dangerous these creatures are? Why would you not hold a pacifier in the baby's mouth? I've held babies before, and not wanting them to make noise, I make sure the pacifier, if it doesn't have a thing wrapped around their head, that I keep it in their mouth, because they have a propensity to spit it out when they're having a mood. So you keep it in the baby's mouth so it doesn't make noise, but no. She walks and she knows these creatures are out there and she allows the baby to drop the pacifier. You were asking for you and your baby to get killed. It's just stupid things like that just annoy me with movies like this. Of course, we come to the part where poor Glenn, oh my god, this poor man gets spooked by this deer and he goes over the precipice. You remember that whole part. And then Otis, the Rottweiler, is barking his head off. Now, this is the part that breaks my heart. And it sucks because you're like, you should cry more for the baby and the mother than you should for a dog. But I think the reason why a lot of us cry for the animals over the babies or something like that is because we have our own animals. And if you don't have kids, the baby part's not going to resonate well with you. It's just not. If you don't have your own human children, you're going to be like, that's really sad and that sucks. You feel sorry for the baby. It's innocent, whatever. But you don't have a kid. But most of us have pets. Especially those who don't have kids, you have pets, that's your kid. So it's more close to home if you see something happen to a pet. And this dog is barking. Now, I don't know what's wrong with the owners. Would I have also trained my dogs to be quiet? I understand that there's situations like this that can arrive. Here's a fun sidetrack story time. My youngest dog, the Pomchi, who I also found out is part pit bull, he was barking because his separation anxiety growing up. He just didn't like me being far away from him. So I went into a shoe store to go get something for frickin' 2 minutes. Come to find out there are like 2 cop cars by my car while I'm at the register picking up my shoes. And I'm just like, are you serious? And I'm not someone that stays in stores to shop. I hate shopping. I literally knew what I went for, picked it up, and went to the register. I told the lady to hold on, go outside, and I knew what it was. And from I left the car, my puppy was barking nonstop because he didn't want me to leave. So someone had called the cops, and I saw one of the Facebook groups that someone had called the cops saying this horrible person left her dog in the car, and the windows were cracked, mind you, and it wasn't a particularly hot day. It was getting hot, but it was overcast and cool at the time I left in the store. Mind you, I was only there for literally 2 minutes because I timed myself. And even the cops were like, yeah, I could feel that the car is cool. You had the AC on. You weren't in there very long. But, people are really sensitive around here. So we have to answer stuff like this when stuff like this happens. I told the officers I'm sorry. And I told my puppy that he would never come on any excursions with me ever again. And these people in the Facebook chat were just like, what the frick is wrong with this person? She's evil. I'm just like, dude, really? So I can understand, in situations like this, you want to train your dogs to be quiet. So I started training my dog, and every time I would take him out, because you have to train him, I would tell him, be quiet. And then you grab him by the scruff of the neck like wolves do with their pups, and you let him know that behavior is not acceptable when I leave. After a while, he did learn to be quiet when I left the car. He would still bark if people walk by, but he can learn to be quiet. In a situation like this, they probably never expected something like this to happen, so their dog does not know the concept of being quiet. All he knows is there's something out there that's dangerous, and I am bred to alert my owners or my pack that something is dangerous. And mind you, this is a little puppy behavior that we've not trained out of dogs because original canines, the wolves, they don't do this. Notice that wolves are very quiet if they sense danger. They will sneak up on it, they will stalk you, and then they will kill you. You won't even see them coming if they do. Dogs don't have that because we bred them to be puppies, and we bred a lot of the mature dog instincts or mature canine instincts out of them, which is why they still lick lips or lick their mouths, wag their tails. You notice that adult wolves, do not do that. So I felt really bad for this dog, and my thing would have been I would have grabbed my dog and honestly, I'm sorry, in a situation like this where it's life and death, I know people are like, you shouldn't hit your animals and blah, blah, blah. You have to let the dog know by any means necessary that this is serious. I want you to be quiet. You are going to be quiet now. Grab his mouth closed, grab him by the scruff of the neck and hold him down and say, shut up! Because this is what ends up happening. They have to put their dog outside because they don't know how to keep their dog quiet. And it's really, really, really freaking sad. And I knew that was going to happen. And the father, it wasn't his fault, but he's like, okay, it's either this dog goes out there since he wants to bark so much, put him outside, or my whole family dies. Because the dog was going to kill everyone. And I cried. I literally cried at the scene because I imagined it being my dog's. And this is exactly why when people are like, well, you're so rough and blah, blah, blah. This is exactly why you train your animals. Because a situation like this could happen. What if there are terrorists outside or something? And you want your animals to be quiet. Your dog has to know what the meaning of quiet is. To know that this is serious. We're on the hunt, we're on the prowl, or we're stalking someone. Do not make any noise. Because this literally could be a life and death situation. This part messed me up. See how long I'm talking about it? It really messed me up. And the way they shot it with Otis, you see his legs as he jumps out of the trunk. The guy doesn't even push him out. He probably would have pushed him out. But the dog wanted to go. He's like, I want to defend my family. He has no idea what these things are. He's a puppy in his mind. He may be an adult Rottweiler, but he is a puppy because that's how we bred and domesticated these dogs to be perpetual puppies. And it just made me cry so bad because I'm like, there's so many times they could have fixed this. There's so many things they could have done to avoid this. Oh my God. This part of the movie just messed me up so bad. It was like the most, aside from Glenn dying and the dog, I think that was it. Yeah, that was basically it. I wasn't even crying when the grandma died because she was going to die anyway and she's old. And it was sweet how she sacrificed herself, and then it didn't really mean anything in the end because they ended up catching the girl anyway. Then the whole family went ham on those guys. So, yeah, this part messed me up. Glenn in this part messed me up. The baby part was horrible, but the Glenn sacrificing himself and dying and the dog part, because they're parts of the family. You're invested in the characters. You're not invested in those other people. So, yeah, very good. This is one thing that The Quiet Place didn't do. Not even when John Krasinski's character sacrificed himself did I cry. It was so sad, but I didn't cry at that scene. I cried in these scenes. Then we have that creepy, full-grown version of Tyrion, like, sitting there saying, join us. And every single one of these movies, notice they always have to have crazy people. In A Quiet Place, the only real crazy people we had was the man and the old man that screamed in the forest. And he wasn't even crazy. I get why he did it. He wanted to die. I think that he should have waited till those people were out of earshot and they saw him. He was going to scream, but he's in pain. His wife died, and he's just like, okay, I'm done. Just come take me, please. He probably even thought that the Quiet Place monster would just kill him and leave everybody else alone if they're quiet. At that point, he didn't care. You're so heartbroken. You just watched the love of your life die in front of you, get killed in front of you, and you were unable to help her. So you're like, you know what? Screw it. Why not? I'm not going to live here by myself without my wife. Like, what the frick? Well, I'll go too. So he wasn't really crazy. But in Bird Box and this movie, they always have to have those crazy people. They're like, come be like us or die. And I'm just like, really? But one thing I did like about the new concept with this movie, them using the cell phones. Them using the cell phones to try and kill these people. It's so stupid. I mean, it's clever, but it's so corny because you're like, really? Just throwing a whole bunch of Apple iPhones inside the house. Oh my gosh, this movie was so hilarious in some portions of it. But it was a good movie. The ending was kind of weird because it just fast forwarded to them making it to the refuge, but you don't really see the journey for them making there. You just imagine, okay, they're going to stay quiet. They're probably going to go under the hush of the storm, because the storm really covers up every noise that is an average decibel to make, such as walking and talking. And I like that they did that. I did not like the ending where they're turning into Katniss Everdeen and Peeta, like at the end. Like, what was that? I just thought that was really corny. I get they wanted to have a happy ending for the guy and the girl, but I feel like it was a little bit on the unrealistic side. Like, how did they find where to go? Maybe the guy knew. And I understand that the father had to step up the plate, just like Rick Grimes in Walking Dead when Shane died, to become Glenn or to become a father for his family because they always depended on Glenn. That's how they wrote the movie from the beginning. And this father had to learn how to take care of his own family. But they did skip past it. They're just like, you know what? We just want you to know there's a happy ending and the things cannot survive the cold. There you go. That's it. That's how it happened for this family. They were just extremely lucky. So, yeah, it was a happy ending. And I guess, there always has to be a refuge. You always have to have a pandemic, creature, plague outburst, and there's always a place where everyone survives and that the plague doesn't go or the creatures can't survive. But I do want to know more about the creatures. With these movies, no matter how corny they are or how good the concept is, the one thing that always sticks out to me are the creatures. And I would like to know more about these vesps. Like, what were they originally? How do they breed? They obviously have more of a social status than the Quiet Place monsters did because you can hear at one point one calling out and the other one responding by calling out and following where that noise was coming from. They obviously breed with each other and mate, but they don't kill each other. We don't see cannibalism in this movie like we did in Pitch Black. So what were they feeding on while they were in that pocket? And are they the only creatures like that in existence in that pocket? Did they originally come from Earth? Were they alien creatures that got stuck here, or just a regular type of prehistoric creature that evolved into that? Were they pterodactyls? Like, what were they? So that's something I'd like to explore in other videos coming up. But if you guys have seen this, what was going through your mind after you watched this movie? Let us know in the comments. And thanks so much for watching. This has been Alteori. You ask, we answer.